Hey, hi, Randy Roth here. I'm going to talk to you today about the difference between the time of Jacob's trouble, which is the Great Tribulation that Jesus also spoke of, and the tribulation that's coming upon the whole world, which is what's spoken of in the book of Revelation. So, the difference is that the time of Jacob's trouble is for Jacob, which is Israel, which is the Jews. And the time that's coming upon the whole world is, well, for the whole world. And so there's a very defining difference between it. And you can see in the book of Revelation that it is for the whole world, and the Jews are not really noted except for the 144,000. So what makes the difference? The difference is that the Great Tribulation, as it is called for the time of Jacob's trouble, and Jesus uses that term and refers to what is referred to in the book of Daniel as the abomination of desolation. We'll start off with Jeremiah 30. It's a 2-chapter prophecy. It mentions the time of Jacob's trouble. It's the only place that mentions Jacob's trouble. And it's in verse 7 of Jeremiah 30. And it tells us that is the worst time for Israel. And there's not going to be any other time greater than that as far as being more worse or anything. Jesus also mentions this worst time ever. It's mentioned in Joel 2. It's mentioned in Daniel 12. And so this worst time, you can only have one worst time ever event. Okay, many people believe, this is a futuristic 7-year tribulation period. However, if that were the case, then the number of Jews being killed in the future would have to be, greater than what's already been killed by Hitler, which it was very substantial. 6 million Jews were killed by Hitler, and 3 million Jews were killed by the Romans. In between this time, many more Jews were killed with different inquisitions. The Spanish Inquisition, it's all happened, in the medieval times. So today there's 6.5 million Jews in Israel. The population is a little more than 7 million. But the fact is that for it to be a worst time ever, it would have to be worse than the entire population of Israel, of Jews. And so if we're saying this Great Tribulation period of time is imminent, well, that simply cannot be the case. It can't happen right now because 6 million Jews were killed by Hitler alone. Okay, so what is the time of Jacob's trouble? You look at the 2 chapters, Jeremiah 30, 31, and you'll find that the Jews are scattered to the nations. So that in Jeremiah 30, verses 10 and 11. And we see the scattering to the whole world. And later, in Jeremiah 30, verse 8, we see it gathered. And the north country is mentioned here in this verse. And today, Israel is 1/3 Russian-speaking, the Jews are. And that's because in the 1970s, Russia released its doors for the Jews, and they were allowed to return to Israel. And so, because of that, 1/3 of Russia for Israel is Russian-speaking. I had somebody walk in the door there, a little distracted. So, anyways, we have the time of Jacob's trouble is a scattering of the Jews, and they are later gathered. So we see that happened during the time of the Romans. They were scattered to the ends of the earth, and in fact, it appeared that Israel stopped being a nation, and until 1948, when she got her land back, she, for all means, appearances, appeared that she had been gone. So, the time of Jacob's trouble was a scattering to the nations, which she is later gathered. Other Old Testament prophecy says once that she is scattered, she will never be scattered again. During this scattering, well, like I said, the Romans killed 3 million Jews right at the onset. With 70 AD and the Roman circus sacrificing the Jews to the wild beasts in the arena. So 3 million were killed by the Romans, another 3 during the midterm and in the interim until Hitler, in which 6 million Jews were killed. So we have approximately 12 million Jews killed during this time called the Jewish diaspora. I'm not sure how you say it exactly. So if 12 million Jews were killed during this time, which they were scattered to the ends of the earth, then how can a more worse time ever be existent or imminent if there's only 6.5 million Jews in Israel today? Yes, there's a bunch of Jews in New York, which could exceed the number that's actually in Israel. And Israel, when it says that Israel's gathered, it says all of Israel to be gathered in order for this time, this Great Tribulation period of time to be ended. And so we haven't seen the end of that because a vast number of Jews are still yet to be gathered. And so when Jesus said immediately after the tribulation of those days, we haven't seen the end of the tribulation of those days because we haven't seen the complete gathering. Okay, so there's a big difference between the time of Jacob's trouble, which is for Israel only, which is something that's already come and it's still in existence, and then we have the tribulation that comes upon the whole world, in which we see in the book of Revelation. So that has a lot to be said about too, which I'll need to address the book of Revelation, but I haven't done that yet. So thank you very much for listening. Enjoy.